Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar for the members of our Bertoni Thorson Giving Society. My name is Sean Burns, and I serve as the Associate Dean of Development for the Tandon School of Engineering here at NYU. In addition to helping secure new gifts for the school to help with scholarships, faculty and student support, and student research, and our broad student programs, our team works hard to steward and thank our donors for your generosity, making sure we show you the impact of your philanthropy. The Bertoni Thorson Society was founded in 2019 to honor two longtime faculty members, Henry Bertoni and Richard Thorson, who are not only great teachers and researchers, but committed to the student experience through their own philanthropy. The society recognizes donors who make a gift at any amount to the engineering school for 3 consecutive years. And today, the society boasts over 500 donors, and we thank all of you for your support. The impact is immense. Today, as we are hosting this webinar to better connect with our donors and give you a snapshot or an insight into today's Tandon School of Engineering, we'll shortly be welcoming and introducing Elizabeth Waters, our director of the Tandon Makerspace within 6 Metro Tech, or maybe it was Rogers Hall when you were here, or possibly even 333 J Street, depending on when you attended school. But Elizabeth is also the co-director of our Experiential Learning Center. It's a program that connects students with a wide range of immersive, hands-on opportunities to convert engineering theory into practice. Elizabeth joined us in January 2024 after a series of roles at the Cooper Union and Rockefeller University, just to name a few. She has her Bachelor's of Science from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and her PhD in Neuroscience from Oregon Health and Science University. Elizabeth will be joined by Ty Haruka, a Tandon student here studying integrated design and media within our Technology, Culture, and Society department. She's also a student worker for the Makerspace, as well as a participant in one of our vertically integrated projects that you'll learn about in the next hour or so. So as Elizabeth continues to kind of resolve a technical issue before she joins, I wanted to share a few things about the engineering school today that are exciting for you all as alumni, parents, and supporters can learn and know about. In October of 2024, so just a few months ago, we welcomed our new leader, our executive dean for the engineering school. His name is Juan DePablo. He's joined us from the University of Chicago, and he is helping Map-O-Vision to elevate science and technology across all of NYU, which is incredibly exciting because I think we know as a top world-class university, the engineering school will begin to permeate and integrate with more programs and disciplines across all of them, from performing arts to healthcare to the basic sciences as well. And one of the ways that the engineering school plays a part with this is by teaching students at scale. And I can't think of someone who is interacting and teaching more students and having an impact than Elizabeth and her team across the Makerspace and the Experiential Learning Center. So Elizabeth, I gave a very quick introduction about the Makerspace and the ELC, but I now hand it off to you and Ty to give us a deeper understanding. So welcome and thank you.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks everybody for joining, and especially Ty, one of the Makerspace technical assistants that we're going to hear from later. I want to walk you through a bit of what we do in the Makerspace. So I'm going to get us started here. I'll start first, maybe with a little bit more about myself. So I joined NYU just a year ago. From the Cooper Union School of Engineering, where I had been working in their Makerspace and their K through 16 programs. But I'm not an engineer myself. I come from a neuroscience background. So I really approach this space thinking about how we center the human in it and how we engage in evidence-based practices for everybody that comes into the space and really continue to improve our work. And improve the opportunities that we're offering our students. Why experiential learning? So this is something that is not new to NYU because it has been happening in many ways across our colleges, but it's something that the School of Engineering has been thinking about really specifically in terms of how our students academic and beyond career is progressing. And so experiential learning is a cycle based on Kolb's learning theory where students are doing something concrete. They're building a car. And then they're thinking about what they've learned from building a car, what worked, what didn't work, what they understood, and what challenges them. Then they conceptualize this, they put it back into the concepts that they're learning, and then apply those concepts to a new problem. So this active experimentalization. And so students at NYU are doing this in many ways throughout their time. And many of these ways intersect with the maker space. So an example here is our first year students are doing their EG 1004 team project. This is a project that they do in their first semester. It usually takes 6 to 8 weeks, and they're completing a design cycle. A student might join a VIP team, so one of the vertically integrated project teams, and again, we'll hear a little bit more about that in a minute. And they might be part of a design subgroup. They might attend a national competition, and this is an experiential learning cycle that happens over the course of a year, or maybe even multiple years for a student at NYU. We have Makerspace technical assistants. They're members of an equipment team. They mentor. And so they are doing projects and then applying the knowledge they've gained from doing these projects to continue to improve the Makerspace. And most of our undergraduates end their time at Tandon by doing a senior capstone project. So this is their final design and engineering project at NYU. And really they're applying now all of this information that they've gained from doing projects, completing experiments in labs, thinking about what they know and don't know, and then pushing their knowledge forward, and it all accumulates in the senior capstone project. That's just 4 examples of how experiential learning is represented at Tandon. Here's a few more. There's internships, there's study abroad, there's volunteering, there's teaching, and there's research. All of these are examples of how students can contribute not just to NYU, but to their own learning path through engaging in experiential learning. But I'm really here to talk about Makerspace. So Makerspace is our over 10,000 square foot and growing facility that has all of the machines that a student might need for rapid prototyping and advanced fabrication, as well as community components that really bring the ethos of Makerspace into NYU and make it available to all of our students. Here's a picture from our first floor at 6 Metro Tech. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the equipment that you're seeing, but I'll highlight right in the center there is a advanced 3D printer from Stratasys. Along the back wall are some more 3D printers, and you see a stairs that goes downstairs into our basement. So all of these makerspace areas are really right there in 6 Metro Tech for our students. Makerspace is overseen by my fabulous team. I don't do this alone at all. We have a program administrator, a senior manager for the Makerspace, a design lab manager, and then we're rounding out our team this coming year with an advanced fabrication manager to help with our higher end equipment, and then 2 adjunct faculties that are going to be supporting students on evening and weekends with learning how to use the equipment and mentoring their projects. But we are really just helping the students manage the space. So we have a large group of undergraduate and graduate technical assistants who are actually helping run the space through these 8 student teams. The teams span everything from equipment and inventory, so the machines, training people on the teams, developing the back end, our website, all of our tracking systems, helping us share the message. So we do design, we do workshops through our design lab, our communications team and our sustainability team are helping to build that mission. I'm going to talk about sustainability in a minute. And then we have the Maker Garage, which is another space that we manage for students to do their prototyping work. The graduate students play a special role within these management teams in that they're working on special projects, almost as if they were an intern that are really helping maintain capacity for the makerspace, but also allow us to bring in new elements. I wanted to highlight a couple because I think they really show what Makerspace is thinking about the future. So We have 2 graduate assistants who are working on updating our training videos and our standard operating protocols. So as we adapted to the COVID pandemic, we did a lot of video development, and now that we're back in full time, obviously, we want to update those. And we also want to update them because we're bringing new equipment in. So our SOP and our training video students are working together to really make sure that in this moment, we are prepared to assist anybody who comes into the space wanting to learn the equipment. Our space, I mentioned rapid prototyping to advanced fabrication. So we have some industry level equipment for CNCing and printing circuit boards that we struggle ourselves to just maintain knowledge on. So we have gone to developing graduate assistants who are going to be specialists in these pieces of equipment and in these types of projects somebody might do on it, so that if somebody comes in for their senior capstone or they're doing a research project and they need support, they will find someone there who is an expert who can help them learn how to use the equipment and give them mentorship on their projects. And finally, how are we participating in the community at Tandon and NYU? We have a sustainability team that has split off a project that was so successful, the Frege. So really thinking about how we're reducing waste from prototyping and fabrication, but also other types of waste, food waste. So our team has invented a shredder that allows us to recycle the PLA from the 3D printers, the plastic waste. And now they're performing a service for our community. They're taking this Frege, which is an opportunity for leftover food from faculty meetings, from club meetings, to be shared with other people. And so there's an actual fridge outside of the makerspace that they are developing policies and procedures for that are going to allow us to grow its use at Tandon, and we hope maybe someday at NYU. Okay. That's a little bit about the management and how we're thinking about the students' contribution to our work and how they're serving the students within our community. I want to touch a little bit of what they're managing. What are the facilities like? So I mentioned this is our first floor at 6 Metro Tech. We have downstairs in the basement a wet lab, whereas upstairs, all of those pieces of equipment are available for students to use. Downstairs, we have some equipment that because of risks or because of its specialized nature that we don't allow students to use, our staff are running it for them. And then we also have the Maker Garage. This is another facility adjacent to Tandon that offers additional prototyping and fabrication space for larger items. It's particularly necessary for our vertically integrated project teams, like the motorsports team. They need a place to build a car. The steel bridge team, they need a place to build a bridge, as well as our mechanical engineering senior capstone projects, who are also building larger scale projects. And then I'm very excited. We're also opening up at 6 Metro Tech an annex that is going to be our specialized location for electronics fabrication. So we're moving our machines for printing circuit boards, all of our soldering stations, electronics into one place so that students can work in an environment on their projects that allows their electronics to be really successful. We're hoping to expand into some testing equipment for chip design and board design, and even talking about maybe some semiconductor research, thinking about how we can be a bridge that spans from that first prototyping experience all the way through a student's time at NYU to their senior capstones and their research projects. If you're on this call, you might be an engineer, and so you're interested in what kind of machines we have. This is just a glance at what there is. I encourage you to go on our website and look at more. We really try to have a variety of equipments in both additive and subtractive fabrication. And then now, because of increased interest in wearable technologies, we're also bringing in sewing stations, embroidery stations, that those are also an option for our students. Students can be trained on any of these pieces of equipment. To get started in the makerspace, you take a safety orientation, you learn how to use the intro 3D printers, and then from there, you can go to any machine that you want to learn. And we see many students are pursuing training and skill development for their classes, but also for their own personal interests. We're also seeing that some of our students are interested in going beyond the classroom and pursuing ideas that they had for products or businesses. And so Makerspace is part of an entrepreneurship pipeline at NYU that allows our students to develop their ideas in a supported way. So they can start at Makerspace with a mini grant. We give those out once a month for materials in the Makerspace. They can participate in the prototyping fund. It's a competitive application where students can get up to $2,500 in this coming spring to develop their idea. There's a mentorship component in that so that they're getting more feedback and more support on their process for developing the product and testing it and launching it. Once they feel like they have something that they're ready to take the next step on, they can go to the Leslie E Lab and they can participate in a startup boot camp. They have other programs throughout the year that help students take their business and develop it into a business model that can be successfully launched for startup investor funding. There's also the LaGuardia Studios. So if a student has something that requires advanced fabrication and materials that are beyond what we typically have in Makerspace. So they need it in multicolored resin, they need it in metal. They can also connect with LaGuardia Studios, which offers professional staff to help them optimize the objects that they're trying to create, and also offers grants to allow them to really reiterate on their design and develop it. So the machines, I think, are not the only reason that NYU Makerspace is unique, although it is definitely part of the reason. There's not many makerspaces that have this range of equipment that really goes from entry-level prototyping all the way up to advanced fabrication and research tools. When you walk into our makerspace, you can see students, prototyping with box cutters and cardboard and tape. And you can also see students milling something out of a block of aluminum. All of those things are happening in this space. So it's a unique opportunity for students to see what each other is doing and develop ideas and connections that can help them pursue their interests. That's to say it gets a little messy sometimes, but it's a really, really fun space and we'd like to have a lot of people in it at all times. So as I alluded to, Makerspace plays these many roles. So we are a Makerspace and design lab where you can come in and learn. You can come into Makerspace and get training and use a piece of equipment. You can come into the design lab and learn a new skill. We have this instructional fabrication component where students within their classes are coming to the Makerspace to either learn skills for their classes or to develop a project for their class, and then the advanced fabrication component. So one of the VIP teams, for example, maybe the concrete canoe is coming in because they're using something like the water jet in order to create the molds they need for it. So it's something that is really entry level, but also something that's going to go to a competition, be used for a business plan. So who comes to the Makerspace? So our Makerspace is open to everybody at NYU. Of course, the majority of our users are Tandon, but we do see students coming from Tisch, Arts and Science, Steinhardt, Gallatin. This other bucket is interesting because we're seeing individuals from the dental school, the nursing school, from the medical school, from some of our other sites, people who are visiting from Abu Dhabi or Shanghai are coming to the makerspace during their time here and developing some skills in using the space. Within Tandon, not surprisingly, we're seeing that mechanical and electrical engineering students are our largest users, but we do see a large number of computer science students. We see students from chemical and biomedical engineering. We see them from civil and urban engineering, and then also from our technology, culture, and society department. All of these departments also have shops within their departments for students to work in that are only available to students within that class or within that department. So what's unique about the makerspace is that every student can come and work in the space together. What are they doing in the space? I love this, right? So because everybody needs to start with that intro 3D printing class, we're seeing that's the largest training that we're doing. But from there, they're really going in a lot of different directions. Some are going to the advanced 3D printers because they want to print in a novel material, maybe something that's flexible. They're learning to use the laser cutters. There's quite a bit of interest in our CNC machines. And then we see a lot of trainings in different areas that seem to be a little bit more niche, but are growing: the soldering, the sewing, vacuum forming, our vinyl cutters. We also are seeing a lot of people from all over NYU and Tandon coming to the Design Lab to participate in one of our workshops that are led by a student from Makerspace or by a professional in our community. So it might be somebody from NYU, or it might be somebody from a local company or organization that's involved in design and engineering. And these are covering a range of topics from technical, perhaps you want to learn software like Fusion 360. Maybe you're coming to talk about design and understand what happens when you're doing a portfolio review, how to develop a portfolio. Maybe you're coming just to do something creative because you need a break. We have classes on weaving and crocheting and how to make chocolate molds, all sorts of things that I would consider making skills and life skills. And then also we have workshops on sustainability. For example, one of our TAs developed a class on how to create reusable food wraps. We allow our TAs to develop some of these ideas develop some of these ideas based on what their personal interests are. So they change over time, which makes it interesting as a way for me to really track where our community interests are developing, and maybe even where new ideas, new areas are emerging, where we might want to adjust our makerspace machines in order to accommodate. So through the Design Lab and through the Makerspace and our staff and our student workers, we're offering a range of curricular support. So from the EG 1004 that I mentioned to the vertically integrated projects, there's quite a few teams who are using our space regularly. We have some advanced engineering courses that are either having our students train in the makerspace or sending students to makerspace for projects, everything from manufacturing to mechatronics to human-centered design. And then, of course, our senior capstone projects, and also researchers. So we see over the summer particularly, but throughout the year, that's undergraduate, master's, and PhD students engaged in research are coming to the space to help create a project, use our material to create a testing system, sort of prototype and test a component for a system before they send it out for manufacturing. So we're seeing a lot of different types of applications take place in the makerspace. And now I want to introduce one of our Makerspace technical assistants, Ty, who during her time at NYU and at Tandon has participated in a lot of the different programs that I mentioned to you that engage experiential learning principles and are taking place in the Makerspace. Ty, thanks for coming today. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose to come to NYU? And what you're doing for your major in integrated design and media.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I actually originally came to NYU because I had an interest in health technology. So I actually started off in like the CBE major, like the chemical biomedical major, just because that was kind of my interest. And then I realized that I wasn't really I kind of am a very project oriented person. So I ended up shifting my major over time to integrated design and media, because that's like a major where you really get to work on things. Um, and yeah, I guess like that eventually kind of led me to the makerspace because if you want to build anything on campus, that's where you go. And I was in here like every day, just working on all the different things for like classes and yeah, like right, I guess like in terms of projects that I did at the makerspace, related to my major, I do a lot of microcontrollers projects. So I build sculptures, like sculptural elements out of wood. And then I make them move using like Arduino and like microcontrollers in general. So it's kind of like this um intersection, I guess, um of like I guess like more artistic things, but like with like prototyping fabrication.
Ty, how long have you been a makerspace TA?
It'll be 1 year in just a few days. Um,
So we
so
started at the same time.
yeah.
Um, we talked earlier about some of the projects that you've done for classes in Makerspace. But we didn't talk about what team you're on in part of the sort of the management structure. So what are your responsibilities covering in Makerspace?
Right. So in terms of the teams, of the 8 teams, I'm on two of them. I'm on the Maker Garage team and I'm on the inventory team. For Maker Garage, I oversee and train people for that space. I take them on tours, make sure that they're using the equipment properly. And then for inventory, that's a matter of just keeping an eye on all of the different things that we have, making sure that we keep a good level of them, and if patrons report that we're missing any or like short of anything, making sure that we get that restocked.
As you say that, I feel like I have to say that the inventory team are really like the unsung heroes of the maker space because the materials that we have and everything, it is really the maker space doesn't run if they're not there. And so the job that you all do in making sure we can run on a day-to-day basis, I might not say enough how much I appreciate you all. Um, let's talk a little bit about one of your projects. So you're on the motorsports team. Tell us about the motorsports team, what your competition is, and what your role is on the team.
Sure. So, motorsports, I guess put simply, we build cars. We have two types of cars. There's like the Baja Motorsports team and then the Formula team within like the main team. And basically they're both competition cars, but they're evaluated on slightly different aspects. So I believe Formula is evaluated more on speed, while Baja is more like off-road. So you can see on the left we've got like the Baja kind of shape of the car, and then on the right that's more Formula. Formula is actually a really new addition to the VIP program. And so that's like we're just getting started. We haven't really built a car for that yet, but it's gonna be really exciting. As I'm in IDM, I am not really so great at like the hard manufacturing stuff, so I do mostly design work. I'm in charge of designing the liveries for both the Baja and Formula teams. What that means is that I basically get the CAD designs from the composites teams, and then I design like on like that 3D model basically on I try to create a design that will look cool and like represents the school really well.
I love that. And I have to jump in and say the motorsports team is one of my favorite teams, but it's also one that we think about for the makerspace and how we can serve the students better over time because building a car obviously takes space, but it also takes some specialized equipment. And so, you know, we're already starting to think about what the next generation of makerspace will look like that offers a more flexible space for a team like this, but also has in place the equipment that they need. One example is we're going to be bringing in a fiber laser, which will help the team cut sheets of metal. That's really going to go some way towards them being able to do some novel design work with their car and give them experience that prepares them, you know, for a job in the automotive industry, right? Thinking about what fabrication pathway is like. You were also a member of the Fall and Prototyping Fund. This was very exciting. Ty, tell us what the inspiration was for your project and how far you were able to go on the project during the fall semester.
Yeah, so you mentioned ED 1004 earlier in the slides. That's actually where like the first iteration of this project kind of came about. Um so basically, for some background, my project is a telescopic mobility cane. The idea is to create a form of support that you can actually like kind of pack down and take with you, and it also provides other capabilities that aren't just like supporting you, but it can also like measure your heart rate and also like alarm if you happen to fall over. And so I developed like a very rudimentary iteration along the course of like my AT 1004 class. Um, and then when I applied to the prototyping fund, I really wanted to take it from basically what was made out of like PVC pipe and like random pieces of wood to something that looked a little bit more polished. Like I wanted to create like more ergonomic handles and more specific parts that were actually like made to suit the designs that I had rather than because like originally it was really just like a box and then like some like a little maze inside and it looked really really strange. So being able to apply to the prototyping fund was great because basically what I got out of it, it was like a little bit of funding to get specific parts and then also some 3D printing credit. So you can see in the slides we have a few models that I made, and I was able to print those out and they fit all of my electronics perfectly. And I was able to make them out of ABS rather than just like PLA, which is like nice because it's a little sturdier. And then I was also able to order specific metal parts for the actual body of the cane, which is a lot better than PVC, I will say. So I have to say it really opened a lot of doors in terms of actually making like and getting on the path to creating like a holistic product that does what it's supposed to and like looks how it's supposed to. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Ty, we were grateful to have a student like you participate in this, and I hope that you're continuing to work on the project. Tell me, you've done a lot of different things at NYU outside of the classroom. How do you think those projects, those opportunities have contributed to your work academically, to your
Um,
success in the classroom?
I think that like one really great thing about Tandon is that there's a lot of room to align what you're interested in with your academics, especially within the IDM major, I would say. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of work on what you want to work on for your classes. And that's kind of really helped me develop skills that I wanted to do because rather than thinking about like, oh, what am I able to do with what I already know how to do? I'm allowed to ask the question, what could I do if I could do anything? And then like what steps do I like can I take towards achieving that goal? So I feel like I I guess like it's like especially with the makerspace itself, like because there are so many machines here, I think it's like you get to ask the question like, oh, like if I just like want to do something like crazy, like well, there's somebody in here that can help you with that. And so that's like really helps like help me academically kind of figure out what classes I want to take and like what like things I want to like continue learning.
Ty, so you're graduating this year. What's going to be next for you after graduation?
So I hopefully will be going into like more I'm looking for like kind of product design roles because I realized along the way that I'm really interested in developing like solutions, but on like more of the design aspect rather than the hard engineering aspect. And so I'm hoping that I will be able to find roles like related to sort of just like I guess like in simple terms like solving problems for like everyday like people, I guess.
I love that. So last question, what advice would you give somebody who's just starting out in a makerspace?
Honestly, I would say just like come in, ask questions, sign up for the most interesting looking thing on the list of like machines. I literally say like, I came in and I signed up for like just like the Ultimaker training. And then now like I'm trained in like six different things, probably seven different things,
Mhm.
just because I kept signing up for things and then like taking the trainings and then realizing I could do more things and then it just kept going from there. Also I would say like just like try making your own projects. If you like have an idea for something, you just all you have to do is just try it, even if it doesn't really work out. I think like that's like a big lesson of like the makerspace and even actually VIP as well. Like a lot of things in engineering don't work out the way you intend them to, like the first time around. But I think that because you're not necessarily alone and that like there's a lot of resources and people around you, you feel encouraged to continue making attempts.
I love that. Thank you so much. Um, I know we're at the end of our time. I think there's a question in the Q&A that we're going to get to. I just wanted to put up my contact information if people are interested in learning about more about NYU, or if you're in the area and you know a group that would like to come visit. We do host tours. Please feel free to reach out to me, take a look at our website to learn more about our mission and what we do. And thank you for your time today. And Ty, thank you. Sean, I'll invite you back too.
Sure, Elizabeth, thank you. Ty, thank you so much. For anyone that does have questions, please put them into the Q&A section on your side of the webinar. We do have a question from Richard that asks, do students who start a business as a result of or with the help of the makerspace have any obligations to share future profits with NYU Tandon? I believe if they are undergraduate, the answer is no, they do not. I think for some of the graduate students, there may be some different policies depending on if it's master's or PhD. So I don't know that exact answer, but I think for our undergraduates, they have the ability to come in, prototype something, and then go explore its opportunities. What I do know that, Elizabeth, you can correct me, people aren't allowed to come in and mass produce things for an already commercialized product. So we can't be a manufacturing facility for someone. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are not a manufacturing facility. We are a prototyping facility. I think, once you have finalized a product, you need more than one of them, you really do need to seek an outside source. In terms of sort of financial responsibility from a project, it might also be influenced by whether or not it was supported by a research grant. In some of those cases, there are different arrangements that I would not be familiar with. I see there's another question from Terry. How does the innovation tie into the Future Labs? So Future Labs is a separate entity from Makerspace and the Leslie E Labs. But we do work with them to allow their participants to have access to resources at the makerspace. So if their projects, their businesses involve prototyping and fabrication, that we can assist them with that.
And then Terry, I'll also answer your question. We'll use Ty's example from her portable cane or where she would develop it through the Student Prototyping Fund. She may go to the eLab to learn how to explore building a business, how to identify the markets. As the company maybe that she develops exists, she may come back to the Future Lab where they're typically working with more developed entrepreneurially ideas and actual corporations and companies. So it kind of circles back from Tandon to the main Square campus back to Tandon. And then you asked the question, how can we engage with students on entrepreneurship mentorship? I can at least share from the Future Lab, there are ways that we can engage you and find any alumni who have key specific interests or subject matter expertise with companies that we are kind of nurturing and supporting. At the student level through the makerspace, I'll maybe ask Elizabeth to share any ways that we seek alumni mentorship through some of our programming.
I mean, definitely, we really welcome alumni to provide mentorship and support for our prototyping fund teams. Having sort of the real world perspective has really helped some of our students push themselves into thinking beyond even the immediate goals they had set themselves for the project. And so if anyone's interested in providing mentorship for the prototyping fund, or wants to learn more about how we bridge from the makerspace to Leslie E Labs, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to make some connections to the people who are managing that programs, because alumni are such an amazing resource, because you understand the perspective of an NYU student and the pathway that they could take with the project. So yes, please come.
Could you walk through, I know we talked about the prototyping fund, but maybe walk through the student experience that Ty has, how to apply, how much money is awarded, and that kind of the timelines for that.
Right. Ty, do you want to talk about fall? What was your application, and how much money did you get?
Sure. So I only applied for like, I think about $300 or so, just because I was really just focusing on making a single good prototype, and I was accounting for how much like how many like times I'd probably mess up the printing, I guess. And so we talked about it a little bit more. I was eventually awarded $125 in printing credit, and then $100 in like buying materials, because they also helped me figure out where I could buy materials that wasn't really expensive. And so like that was how that worked. Like we were given, I guess, resources to figure out how to best make use of our budget, and then yeah, like the freedom to kind of use it as we wished.
And so that's the approach the prototyping fund takes. So the applications are open at the beginning of the semester. For that semester, students write a brief description of what their project is, very brief, and a budget. And the maximum award in fall is around $1,000, and the maximum award in spring is around $2,500. And so we really want students to tell us what they need, and then we work to try to get as many teams slotted into the budget that we have. So sometimes we do reach out to a team and we say, this looks great. Do you really think you can get this much done? How are we going to be able to help you plan it out over the fall and the spring? It is, like I mentioned before, it is a competitive application. And so we have a committee of staff and faculty who are reviewing those. And it's really based on, do we think that it's a realistic goal that the student has set out? And the types of projects vary a lot. We've, in this past year, had students also creating a search and rescue drone for use in collapsed buildings or in tight spaces that could take a communication device to an individual that was trapped. We had an artist who was developing accessible musical instruments. We had a musician developing a new type of amplifier that's robust and portable. So it really varies, and we're open to all types of projects. Sean, were there more questions?
How many projects do we typically support in the fall? Out of curiosity.
So this fall we had 11 projects. And that number can vary depending on how much each team is asking for in terms of budget. I would say on average, the requests are pretty small. Like Ty mentioned, she requested $300. We're seeing a lot in that range. In spring, those projects that were really successful in fall can come in and ask for more money. And so that's for a team, like that search and rescue robot or drone that I mentioned, like they're now at the point their idea is well developed. They need to start making a more robust prototype, having more, sorry, the word is escaping me, the materials, right? So the materials that would actually be on a final product. That's the type of team that I would expect would be ready in another semester to apply to one of the startup boot camps. and start thinking about it. Do they have a product that they can launch themselves or sell to a company for development?
And if anyone has questions on the webinar, please place them in the Q&A section. We'll pitch them to Elizabeth and Ty. While, if there are any more, I'll at least share a few fun facts about the engineering school, to kind of a state of the school right now. But across all of Tandon, we have 7,500 students on site, on campus, roughly 3,000, about 3,500 undergraduate, 3,500 master's students, and about 500 PhD students. So we're educating students at scale. We're sending them out into the workforce, into the fields of academia, to go do great things in a variety of fields. It's exciting. Our new executive dean is really pushing all of us to make sure we're showcasing the great talent out of the student and faculty population, so we can do more here in Brooklyn and in Washington Square. Let's see. Still, again, if anyone has any questions, please send them in, but I'll continue to share some fun facts. Other ways that we hope to engage you through the spring semester. I think typically in April, we do our research student showcase, which is what I like to call a university level science fair, where we take over the Metro Tech Plaza and we showcase 30 to 45 student teams. Many of the teams that Elizabeth talked about, our vertically integrated project teams, some of our successful student senior design project teams, some PhD students, kind of showcasing the work that they're doing relevant to their fields of research and how they see it impacting society, whether it's improving urban infrastructure, public transportation, cybersecurity, any of the topics that you're seeing in the news today, our students are working on. And they speak with passion, they speak with excitement, and candidly, they also like speaking to engineers like you all who can talk the talk and get in the weeds on specific things. And it's always exciting. We always pray for warm, nice weather, but it's a way for us to take advantage of our beautiful kind of plaza here in downtown Brooklyn and invite all of you and your friends and family to come and see what's going on, because it is exciting and it's always really special.
Sean, I always feel like that celebration piece is something that we don't often include when we talk about learning cycles, but I think that idea of celebrating the excellence of our students and the work they do is so critical to them really seeing themselves as engineers and developing an identity as someone who can make a change, who can contribute to their community on the local, national, global level. So I often say to my colleagues who are not in higher ed or not in engineering, come to those, because if you want to feel hopeful about the future, you just have to talk to these students. They are so thoughtful and engaged and excited about engineering. It's really a lovely experience.
But I couldn't agree more. And we look forward to engaging all of you on the call as our generous supporters, our proud alumni and community members throughout the rest of this academic year and in the future. I think the school is excited to always welcome you back to campus and show you around. Like I said, you might have taken classes in what we call 6 Metro Tech now, but you may have been here when it was 333 J Street. But it's still the same place. And right now, the makerspace, I like to call it the heartbeat of the engineering school. It is where people come to study, to learn, to build, to socialize. And it's a stop on every tour that I give, because it's education in action. And that's the most exciting thing. I think that our engineers, students are realizing, Ty, through their own example of how can I build things, how can I explore my own passions and interests, it's through an engineering education. And it's really exciting. So we're coming up on time today, but I want to thank all of you on the call, and really I want to thank Elizabeth for your leadership, and Ty for you as a student leader having an impact with your peers, and as you go off into your career, you'll have a phenomenal impact as well. But we are beyond grateful to have you join us today and share some of the great things you all are doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, everybody.
All
Enjoy
right,
the rest of your
anyone
day.
has any questions, you have Elizabeth's contact information, you
Yes.
can go on the Makerspace. They have a great newsletter where they send out programming that is open, at least to the NYU community. I don't know about the alumni community, but you can at least begin to see some of the content that we are trying to socialize and engage our student, faculty, and staff population. But with that, we are always grateful for your support to the engineering school, and we'll continue to keep you informed and engaged with what's going on. So thank you again today, and have a wonderful day.